This article about the 1999 Mr. Olympia contest comes from the January 2000 issue of Flex magazine, and it is written by Peter McGough, editor-in-chief of Flex magazine. It says, Ronnie Rocks Vegas. Ronnie Coleman takes his second straight Sandow. Flex Wheeler literally loses it as the Mr. O takes Las Vegas by storm in a setting that establishes new standards for the sport of bodybuilding. Like Siegfried and Roy, like abs and thighs, Las Vegas and the Mr. Olympia belong together. Both celebrate excess for the sheer excessive sake of it. Both foster a larger-than-life philosophy, decreeing that its standout attractions keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Both revel in illusion and promote the fantasy that life-changing gains can be yours, which in truth only a gifted few can attain. So it really was only a matter of time before Joe Weider made the inspired decision to bring his bodybuilding flagship to the gambling capital of the world. Staging the Mr. Olympia contest in Las Vegas was a spectacular success, for there has never been a more glamorous setting for the sport's premier contest than the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino, and there has never been a greater night for bodybuilding than what occurred there on October 23rd, 1999. A sold-out 5,000 capacity crowd at the hotel's event center witnessed a thrilling extravaganza that culminated in Ronnie Coleman outmuscling 15 others on the road to Mandalay and his second consecutive Olympia crown, with the only apparent dissenter to the decision being a hyped-up Flex Wheeler. But like a braless, bungee-jumping Dolly Parton, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here. Copying an attitude. Since winning the 1998 Mr. Olympia contest against red-hot favorite Flex Wheeler, full-time cop in Arlington, Texas, Ronnie Coleman has added to his personable nature a confidence that suitably reflects his cast-iron self-belief, without ever straying into arrogance or delusion. At May's Night of the Champions, he exercised that confidence when he went on stage and doffed his shirt in a Let's See What You Got challenge to Mr. O aspirant Kevin Levrone, who politely declined to similarly divest his threads. Then at the Mr. Olympia contest staged in Secaucus, New Jersey on October 2nd, 3 weeks before the Mandalay Bay Muscle Fest, Ronnie again took the opportunity to rip off his shirt to show an astonished audience that, in tandem with his growing confidence, he had harnessed growing muscularity. Also present at that unveiling were several Mr. Olympia judges who gaped in awe at Ronnie's wares. And it was difficult not to discount the theory that the first round of the Mr. Olympia contest had already taken place. Of hams and glutes. For this reporter, any doubts about the destination of the last Sandow of the century was removed as they watched a pivotal scene unfold in the pump-up area 15 minutes before prejudging for the 1999 Mr. Olympia contest was to begin. Already in the pump-up area was Flex Wheeler. All summer long, the Sultan of Symmetry had promised he would be bigger, rounder, and harder than any previous contest appearance. This declaration was made despite his decision not to recruit the contest prep services of Chad Nichols, whose ministrations had served Wheeler so well when he won the '98 Arnold Schwarzenegger Classic, most pundits' selection as the Californian's high-water performance. At 243 pounds, Wheeler was bigger and rounder than the 32-pound package which he dominated the '98 Arnold, but no way was he as hard or as cut. As he went about his last-minute fine-tuning, it was clear that his hams and glutes in particular, in comparison to his lofty '98 standards, were as soft as a Larry King interview. Wheeler knew full well that the condition of his glutes and hams would be the judge's barometer as to whether he was in shape. In an interview in the November '99 Flex, he had stated, "When I first walk on stage, people are going to say, 'Let's see him turn around, then we'll know if he's really in shape. When I turn around, they'll see my glutes and hams are shredded and full.'" Well, they weren't. And to compound matters, into the pump-up area at that very moment walked Ronnie Coleman, and even as he strode past, you could see the striations in his glutes and hams flexing with every step he took. From head to toe, the reigning champ looked like a walking anatomy chart, displaying more quality tissue than a Kleenex factory on overtime. Standing next to me, Flex's Beth Sonnenberg, upon catching sight of Coleman, gasped, "Oh my God, oh my God, I can't believe it. Her reaction took me back nearly 30 years, way before Beth was born, to when I had executed a similar outburst the first time I saw Sergio Oliva. Thanks, Beth. You made a happy man feel very old. Personal reflections aside, Ronnie being so on, indicated that the jig was well and truly up for Flex. But he was to give the 1999 Mr. Olympia contest his all, and then some. Let the Vegas chips fall where they may. The 1999 Mr. Olympia prejudging began at 1:05 p.m. and lasted 2 hours. As the event was played out, here's a shorthand assessment of the combatants who composed the 16-man lineup. Pavel Jablanicki, 237 pounds. Hardest guy in the contest with a physique responsible for more cuts than Michael Jackson's surgeon. Sporting a bronze metallic look to his tan, Pavel had a deep-set, rock-hard abs that he had a tendency to relax from time to time. Could do with more lat and shoulder width, striations abounding on his chest, delts, and back. Later in the evening, he would execute a powerful routine to the accompaniment of a rousing classical soundtrack, but lack of callouts meant this check got bounced again. Jay Cutler, 255 pounds. With a 10-pound increase from his 99 Arnold Classic fourth-place form, he was much fuller while still retaining impressive hardness. This increase brought his upper body more into balance with his always outstanding leg development. Back is wide but needs to add more thickness and detail. Could trim his obliques a little. Nasser El Sambadi, 280 pounds. Not on par with his best ever form at the 1997 Mr. Olympia, where he finished second. Didn't seem as full across his chest and delts, which made the sweep of his upper body taper less dramatic than we have come to expect. Mike Matarazzo, 255 pounds. 3 pounds up from his 9th place of last year, harder and fuller than he's ever been. Usually when Mike gets hard, his show-stopping biceps lose size. This time they remain showstoppers. Full thighs and good serratus, but needs more delt size and roundness. In the posing round, he provided the slam-bang routine complete with tongue protruding shots. The highlight was a groovy most muscular, during which he attempted to lick his chin while jerking his head from side to side as if he were getting set to swivel it all the way around a la Linda Blair in The Exorcist. Chris Cormier, 253 pounds. Best he's ever looked. 5 pounds heavier than at the 98 Olympia, Cormier was exploiting the momentum he earned from his breakout performances at the 99 Ironman first and Arnold Classic third. Has now found the formula for retaining muscle size and sharpness as he dials in for a contest. Previously, he's tended to be sharp but flat. Much thicker and wider in the back, does a one lat at a time rear lat spread that builds into a pair of cobra lats. Signature rolling abs pose brings the house down, and later in the evening he would do the same during his posing routine in which he shimmied his butt better than a Chippendale dancer. In fact, I hadn't seen buns move so fast since that morning's overcrowded breakfast buffet. Jean-Pierre Fuchs, 275 pounds. Seems to have lost his way these last couple of years. Still has a big back and chest, but overall he lacks tie-ins between muscle groups, and his distended stomach cannot be overlooked. Ronnie Coleman, 257 pounds. A good 7 pounds heavier than last year and the clear winner, although he was not as bone dry or as rock hard as in 98. In comparison to 98, his thighs are enormous with a greater sweep and his front delts have improved. Plus, the pec anomaly is no longer present. Impressive split biceps, an awesome back double biceps on which muscle fights with muscle to hang onto his frame. A big lat spread that prompted Dorian Backman Yates to comment, "Ronnie looks like a cartoon character." When doing back poses, Ronnie would hitch up his trunks to expose ripped glutes. At every appearance, Ronnie would come on with a raising the roof gesture, accompanied by the pronouncement, "Yup, yup." Dexter Jackson, 217 pounds. 7 pounds heavier than for his third place at May's Night of the Champions. A great physique in terms of round muscle bellies, proportions, hardness, and condition. But when standing next to the bigger guys, he does get overpowered. Still, 9th in his first Olympia is no mean feat. Flex Wheeler, 243 pounds. 13 pounds heavier than for the 98 Olympia. Flex, with his great lines and full muscle bellies, looked tremendous in the biceps, triceps, and delts, and front thighs were impressively cut. Chest a bit flat, and he was not nearly as sharp overall as his 98 Arnold form. His upper back resembled the machinations of a squirming snake pit, but from the lumbar region on down, Flex smoothed out to the extent that, whereas Coleman took every opportunity to hitch up his trunks and show off his striated glutes, Flex made a habit of adjusting his trunks to cover his butt. Marcus Rule, 274 pounds. 4 pounds heavier than his Night of the Champions fourth place form and not as hard or as dry as he was at that outing. His back particularly lacked the detail he's exhibited previously, and an ungainly stance in certain poses counted against him. Still, the German wunderkind has the physical weaponry, temperament, and onstage presence to become an Olympian star. He may have expected better than 12th in his Olympia debut, but Ronnie Coleman couldn't even crack the top 15 in his Olympia baptism in '92. Kevin Levrone, 252 pounds. The Maryland muscle machine is still trying to find the ripped in full formula. And finishing second at the 99 Arnold, he was at 237 pounds, cut but somewhat flattish. Now 15 pounds heavier, he had the required muscle fullness, but not the sharpness, particularly in his front thighs and hams. Still has those outrageous delts and triceps. Back was wide and thick, but lacking deeply grooved detail. In the days before the contest, Kevin was earning rave reviews from those who saw him, but the impetus did not carry over to the judging panel. Sean Ray, 213 pounds. 2 pounds lighter than last year, he still lacked the velvet crispness he displayed circa '96. His signature serratus, Christmas tree, and front thigh prostrations were still impressive, but not as sharp as they have been. He's always competitive, and Sean slugged it out to the end. He has now finished in the top 5 in the last 10 Olympias. Lee Priest, 220 pounds. 5 pounds lighter than for his 7th place finish at the '98 Olympia, Priest looked a little over-depleted, particularly in shoulder width and thickness, where he seems to have lost size. Still has his great double biceps and the best forearms in the business. Overall, not the hardest he's ever been. His routine to the Superman theme received one of the loudest ovations of the evening, although as far as the judges were concerned, Priest could be excused for thinking their pens contained some kryptonite. Ernie Taylor, 238 pounds. Weighing nearly the same as he did for last year's 8th place finish, England's best had been struggling all year with the debilitating rotator cuff problem that seriously inhibited him from going heavy on pressing movements, a factor that showed up in a decrease in his normal chest and delt size and thickness. Ernie was scheduled to have the rotator cuff operated on 2 weeks after the Olympia. For all that, he still has those astonishing triceps that hang from his arms like a stripper off Drew Carey, and he still retains one of the most friendly dispositions found among the pros. Milos Sarcev, 245 pounds. Thighs and abs super cut and very tight and balanced overall, with minuses being long and flattish biceps and a back not as sliced as other body parts. The symmetrical package Milos presents often makes one wonder why he doesn't score higher. Perhaps it's because in an age of freaks, he doesn't have a body part that people rave about. Again, he served up a stunning posing routine. Paul Dillette, 282 pounds. Much sharper than his winning form at May's Night of the Champions, the Canadian was in his best shape since his 5th spot at the '97 Olympia. Front double biceps outstanding, and his thighs and hams were full and cut. Back looked watery. In the past, his presentation has been criticized, but this was his best ever. Rolling the dice, 1-6. From the get-go, it was clear that Coleman, Wheeler, and the fast-improving Cormier would, in that order, fill the top 3 spots, with Levrone, Ray, and El Sambadi involved in a dogfight for 4th, 5th, and 6th. Coleman, Wheeler, and Cormier were duly called for the first comparison of the Symmetry round. As they lined up, it was evident that while Flex had the more pleasing shape in terms of his silhouette presented, Ronnie filled in his bigger silhouette with much more muscle and detail. Thus it was that the first round went to the defending champ, with Wheeler and Cormier in 2nd and 3rd respectively. When stripped down to basics, bodybuilding is all about show us the muscle, and the muscularity round represents the real battlefield. Here's how this humble scribe saw the first and only crucial muscularity comparison between the top three. Front double biceps, Coleman first, Wheeler second, Cormier third. Front lat spread, Coleman first, Cormier second, Wheeler third. Side chest, Coleman first, Wheeler second, Cormier third. Back double biceps, Coleman first, Wheeler second, Cormier third. Rear lat spread, Coleman first, Cormier second, Wheeler third. Side triceps, Wheeler first, Coleman second, Cormier third. Abs and thighs, Cormier first, Coleman second, Wheeler third. This personal analysis shows Coleman beating Wheeler in 6 out of 7 poses, while Wheeler beat Cormier in 4 out of 7 poses, meaning Cormier was closer to Wheeler than the latter was to Coleman. Okay, this isn't rocket science, albeit that Flex's factoid king, Joe Rourke, has been heard referring to the fitness Olympia as rocket science. On the other hand, the final score sheet showed that Coleman had straight first, Wheeler straight seconds, and Cormier straight thirds. Lavroni, Ray, and El Sambadi were 4th, 5th, and 6th, respectively, separated by only 5 points, which is like 3 marathon runners finishing within a few yards of each other. Wheeler Dealer. As the 1999 Olympia contest rumbled toward its climax, it became clear that Flex Wheeler was the one person not willing to accept the inevitability of a Coleman victory. In the comparison rounds, he exuded the air of a man who was not there for second place. At one point during an ab comparison with Coleman, he slowly mimicked the counting of his well-defined 3 sets of abs before drawing attention to Ronnie's ab formation, which is basically 2 rows. Flex's belief that the race was not yet run was further exemplified by his posing routine, in which he gave the most energized and entertaining performance of his career. In contrast to his usual choice of posing to a smoochy ballad, he picked a fast-paced track with a thumping beat, during which he hit a dazzling array of dramatically synchronized shots. The finale saw Flex slowly descending to a full split that had the women in the audience screaming and the men wincing. At the end of the routine, he punched the air as he cavorted around the stage shouting, "Mine, mine." As an observer who has questioned how badly Flex Wheeler wants an Olympia crown, I was frankly impressed by his competitiveness and never say die spirit. Flex truly gave off the vibe that he could win this thing. As the top 6 prepared for the pose down, Flex started to limber up with some calisthenics as if he were going into a 12-round bout with Mike Tyson, who coincidentally was across the strip that very night at the MGM Grand, getting ready to punch out Orland Norris's right kneecap. With the audience roaring its approval, Flex, in what was the most physical Olympia pose down ever, took it to Ronnie, at one point looking the champion up and down as if to say, "You ain't got nothing, sucker." Vegas Blues. There was some booze as Nasser El Sambadi was announced in 6th, but he graciously accepted his awards and quietly left the stage. Afterward, he couldn't understand how he had finished behind Ray and Lavroni and would not accept the viewpoint that he was not at his best. Such resistance is what makes Nasser the warrior he is. Sean Ray absorbed 5th with a gleaming smile, and a post-mortem of his placing the fastest lip in the West, unlike previous years when he has made a bigger stink than a skunk with a hygiene problem, was almost tranquil. I didn't get the reward I had hoped for, but it doesn't discourage me from taking part in the adventure and excitement of being at the Olympia. Very few people get to compete at this level, and I'm happy that the Olympia is in Vegas. This is where it belongs. If I sound a little content, it's my maturity in realizing that my real goal is to get in shape, get my photo shoots done, and promote and market myself from there. Whatever the judges decide is out of my hands. Say what, Sean? This is like watching Howard Stern morphing into Nelson Mandela. But patience, Grasshopper. Like death, taxes, and Robin Williams overacting, some things in life are inevitable. And true to form, the veteran of the Olympia lineup soon reverted to type. I'm still complaining about the system, the continuing frustration that the judges seem to have in a lifelong tenure. I see the same names continuing to judge me all the time. And I have to ask, if the judges are so professional, what are they doing dragging out the symmetry round for so long, 45 minutes? Let's get to the meat and potatoes, the muscularity round. That's why we're here, to show muscles. That's why the fans come here, to see muscle. A disappointed Kevin Lavroni left the stage, upon which he had anticipated so much glory with his 4th place awards. He also finished fourth in 98, and on that occasion spoke bitterly of bad judging and impending retirement. But this year, eerily echoing Sean Ray, the rancor disappeared and he instead spoke sadly and without accusation. My physique was the way I wanted. The result wasn't the way I wanted. I wouldn't have done anything differently. It just seems the judges are not rewarding my type of physique. Word was out that I looked great, but they overlooked me early on. He was seventh at the end of the first round. And after that, I couldn't catch up. No point in getting upset and frustrated. I've been in this position before. It's time to smell the coffee. Do I keep coming back for the torture of finishing fourth or fifth? For me, the whole point of bodybuilding is to be Mr. Olympia. And after tonight, I know it's never going to happen. After 8 attempts, I feel my ambition of holding a Sandow is now all shot. It hurts, man. Chris beats the pants off him. In contrast to the athletes who placed 6th through 4th, third place Chris Cormier was elated with his showing. At the banquet, dressed in spangly red pants that only someone called the real deal could get away with, he enthused, I know people always used to think, yeah, Cormier is good, but he'll never do any better than 6th or 7th at the Olympia. But even when I started bodybuilding way back in the 80s, I knew I had the potential to crack the top 3 at the Olympia. My problem is I was always losing too much muscle getting ready for a contest, and I'd go on stage over depleted at 240 pounds. I didn't get it right until this year's Arnold when I was 254 and I was third behind Nasser and Kevin. Tonight I was 253 and I beat both of the guys who finished ahead of me at the Arnold. When I got the first call out in both rounds, I was totally buzzed. From here, I've got Flex and Ronnie to aim for, and my next contest will be the 2000 Arnold, which I intend to win. With that, he was off into the Las Vegas night, or taking the pants into account, for an audition for the road production of The Village People Meet the Wizard of Oz. Pullman wins it, Wheeler loses it. As jubilant Chris Cormier left the glare of the spotlight, only Ronnie and Flex remained to await their fate. There really was no doubt that Ronnie was the winner, but still Flex was prepared to go eyeball to eyeball with the champ and see who would be the first to blink. In truth, you have to take your Gold's Gym cap off to Wheeler. There has probably never been another bodybuilder apart from Arnold himself who could, despite not being in top form, still be supremely competitive by virtue of his God-given shape, muscle bellies, and fair amount of chutzpah. Bodybuilding is, as been so often stated, the art of illusion, and with the likes of Lance Burton and Siegfried and Roy only a cab ride away, Wheeler was aiming to become the Houdini of muscle with a strategy that, if successful, would see him escape with his first Sandow. His goal was to convince the judges by sheer force of will and charisma not to believe what their eyes told them and instead nominate him as the 1999 Mr. Olympia. He had already convinced certain sections of the audience and even seemed to have gotten to Ronnie a little, who at that point looked a little bit nervous for a guy headed for a straight first win. Ominously, as 0 hour approached, the magician had fallen for his own illusion, and thus the last Olympia of the century was primed for an explosive conclusion. I had a pretty good view of the episode that was about to take place because I was on stage standing behind Ronnie and Flex. This by virtue of being, in partnership with Scott Connolly of Metrex, one of those selected to present the second place medals, check, and certificate to the runner-up. With the audience hushed in expectancy, Wayne D'Amelia broke the tension as he barked, in second place, Flex Wheeler. At this, the audience thundered their approval. There were very few boos, and the now two-time champ dropped to the floor in what is threatening to become his traditional officer down victory pose. Wheeler? Well, unlike last year when he knelt to congratulate the prostrate Coleman, he began to pace up and down, biting his lip. He then went to the back of the stage and turned his back to the audience, which some sections interpreted as bad sportsmanship, and thus began booing. I was standing level with Wheeler, and unlike the audience, could see his face. It appeared that he was filling with emotion and was on the verge of tears. 10 or 15 seconds passed, and he seemed to have regained his composure a little, but I still had the feeling he was thinking of walking off. I shouted above the crowd, Flex, get this done. Approaching him, I said, you put up a terrific performance. Don't let it end badly. Whether he heard me or not, I don't know, but he turned around and with a stern face let the medals be placed around his neck and accepted the check and certificate. Then he took the medals off and went to the front edge of the stage. For one nervous moment, it seemed as if he had been taking tantrum lessons from Diana Ross and was going to throw the medals into the audience or at the judges. By now, a cacophony of boos was raining down on him as he laid the medals on the floor and pointed to the second place certificate while thumping his chest and shouting, "I'm number one." He then scooped up the medals and turned to give Ronnie a brief hug before leaving the stage. As Wheeler hurried from the backstage area, Jim Rosenthal, Flex's answer to Jim Gray, caught up with the agitated runner-up and elicited the following comments. "I don't agree with the decision. I didn't agree with what happened last year either. If that's what they feel, so they said it, so it's done. In my heart, I feel like I'm the true Mr. Olympia. I feel like I'm the best. I believe in myself, but they believe differently. Theirs is bigger than mine, and that's it. The show is over. Forget about it." Then he left the stadium. Y'all come first. As Flex departed the scene, Ronnie was surrounded on stage by his soulmate, Vicky Gates' family, and was basking in the glow of a second Olympia triumph. He told an ecstatic crowd, "All the people who show up here are the ones who make the sport. We wouldn't have a sport if it wasn't for you all. You all are the most important people in the world for me. I love all of y'all, and I thank all of y'all sincerely from the bottom of my heart. I will be at the banquet, and I'll be the last one to leave, taking pictures, signing autographs, doing what the Lord permits me to do. Of course, I couldn't do this without Vicky Gates and Chad Nichols, who guides Coleman's contest prep. I love y'all from the bottom of my heart. God bless all of y'all. Good night. It's time to eat." That Ronnie Coleman did indeed love y'all was graphically illustrated at the banquet when absolute bedlam broke out as he entered. He good-naturedly acquiesced to every request for a photo or autograph to the extent that it took him an hour before he could sit down and eat. Afterward, clutching his second Sandow, the world's most badass, we're talking striations, cop, said, "I knew what it took to win this title in the first place, so I knew what it would take to repeat. Why change what works? I looked exactly like I wanted to. All my goals were achieved." And his newfound serene confidence? "Yes, I'm much more confident than I used to be because," big smile, "I'm Mr. Olympia, baby." When you've just celebrated a half century on the planet and someone calls you baby, you gotta love them. And indeed, it does seem that everybody just loves the current Mr. Olympia. Perhaps it's because he had to take more lumps and come from further back in the field than any previous Mr. Olympia, and thus the regular gym rat finds it's easier to identify with the guy who wasn't born with a silver dumbbell in his mitt. Or perhaps it's the simple perception that although Ronnie Coleman has proved himself to be a fabulous bodybuilder, it's equally apparent to everyone he's an even better man. And if we look at the score sheets, Joe Weider's 1999 Mr. Olympia, October 23rd, 1999, Mandalay Bay and Resort and Casino, Las Vegas, Nevada, presented by GNC, sponsored by Metrex. Ronnie Coleman in first place with all ones. Round 1, 5, round 2, 5, round 3, 5, round 4, 5, 20 points total, $110,000 for first place. Flex Wheeler in second from the United States, 10 in each round for a score of 40, $50,000 second place. Chris Cormier from the United States, perfect thirds, 15 in each round, round 1, 2, 3, and 4 for a total score of 60, $40,000 for third place. Kevin Levrone from the United States, 31 points in round 1, 22 points in round 2, 23 points in round 3, 25 points the pose down in round 4 for a score of 101 points, $30,000 in fourth place. Sean Ray in fifth place from the United States, 29 points in round 1, relaxed. Round 2, the compulsory poses, 24 points. 24 points in the posing round, 26 points in the pose down for 103 points total, $20,000 for fifth place. And Nasser El Sambadi from Yugoslavia, 22 points in round 1, 30 points in round 2, 30 points in round 3, 24 points in round 4 for 106 points, $15,000 in sixth place. Paul Dillette from Canada, 27 points in the first round, 37 points in the second round, 38 points in the posing round. He was not in the pose down, score of 102 points, $13,000. Lee Priest in eighth place from Australia, 45 points in round 1, 41 points in round 2, 39 points in the posing round, 125 points total for $12,000. Dexter Jackson in ninth place from the United States, 41 points in round one, 43 points in round two, 49 points in the posing round, 133 points total, $11,000. And then Milos Garcev in 10th place from Yugoslavia, 54 points in round one, 59 points in round two, 48 points in the posing round, 161 points total for $10,000. And then Mike Matarazzo in 11th place for the United States, 58 points in round one, 61 points in round two, 59 points in the posing round, 178 points. Marcus Ruhl in 12th place from Germany, 61 points in round one, 60 points round two, 69 points in round three. Ernie Taylor from England in 13th place, 66 points in round one, 68 points in round two, 59 points in round three for 193 points. Pavlo Jablonicki in 14th place from the Czech Republic, 63 points in round one, 67 points in round two, 69 points in round three, 199 points. Jay Cutler, 15th place in the United States, 72 points in round one, 67 points in round two, 65 points in the posing round for 204 points. And Jean-Pierre Fuchs in last place, 16th place from Switzerland, 79 points in round one, 80 points in round two, 80 points in round three for 239 points. And top 10 would qualify for the 2000 Mr. Olympia.